Alright, for this assignment you're going to be creating what's called an abstract drawing, and I'm going to give you this worksheet that has one large box printed and then it's divided into 4 quadrants. Then I'm giving you a set of directions that give you specific steps that you have to complete to make your composition. The composition is just the drawing or the arrangement of the drawing. So here's my teacher sample of what this can look like as a finished abstract work of art. And here are some student samples of what was made last semester. So you can see how each student interpreted the directions in their own way. This is a drawing assignment, so we're starting with pencil first, so you can erase it as you need to, and then you're going to be adding color with colored pencil only. Please do not use the markers, please do not use the crayons. Alright, so to get started, the directions tell you that you need to draw 3 large geometric shapes and make one shape overlap another, and each shape must go through 2 quadrants of the 4 that are printed. So you decide what shapes you want to work with, you decide where you place them, and then just make sure you meet the requirement. So I began by drawing an oval shape, and I drew it large, so it went through 2 quadrants. Also make sure that you draw soft and light so that when you make a mistake you can erase it and your lines still disappear. If you press too hard, you're going to have a hard time erasing those mistakes. As you draw your lines and shapes, make sure that you're filling up the entire box. So draw large and then think about adding lines where there's empty areas to make that composition look more complete. So I know I have to go through at least 2 boxes. I can go through 3 boxes if I want. So I drew a triangle shape here, but I have not met the requirement of overlap yet. So I want one shape to overlap another. So now I'm going to do my overlap. I'm going to draw in this empty area a rectangle, and I'm going to draw until it touches my triangle, and I'm going to stop. And then I'm not going to draw the rest of the rectangle here because the triangle is in front of or overlapping. So that just finished step number 3. So when I'm done with step 3, I should cross that off so I know that I've met that requirement. Step 2 says one shape must have a hole in it. So you decide what your hole is going to look like. It could be any shape. I decided to put my hole inside the triangle like this, and I just made a wiggly shape. But if you want to put more than one hole, you may do so. If you want every shape to have a hole, you may do so. And I'm going to cross that off my list. Step 3 says draw a wavy line that goes through each of the 4 quadrants printed. The line should go in front of and behind your shapes to create a sense of space. This is making depth when you make things appear close or far away. So the directions say the wavy line has to go through all 4 quadrants, but it also needs to go in front of some shapes and behind some shapes, and we're going to use that hole. We're going to draw that wavy line into the hole. So I'm going to start down here, and I'm going to make my wavy line come up to my triangle, and I want it to come through this hole. So I'm going to skip drawing right here, but I am going to start back up in that hole. And now I want to go over my triangle. So I'm going to draw across my triangle. And then it's going to wave up into this quadrant. It's going to go behind my triangle. And I want to go over my shape here. So I'm going to draw across it. And then it's going to end up over there. So I just met the directions. It went in all 4 quadrants. It went behind some and over some shapes. We'll cross that off. Step 4 says draw 3 straight lines in the larger areas that are empty. So look at your design, your composition. Anywhere you've got empty space, draw a straight line to break that up. So I'm going to draw a straight line here. And I'm going to draw a straight line over here, and I'm changing it up. Some are vertical, some are horizontal. You can add more than one straight line. And I think I'll put one here. Okay, so now my big empty areas are starting to be broken up into smaller pieces. Step number 5 says draw 3 lines that are parallel to other lines that you've already drawn that are a finger distance apart. So I want to make something parallel. I'm going to put my finger as a measurement to make things a finger distance apart. So down here, I'm going to add a parallel line right here, finger distance apart, and it's going to be parallel to the edge of that box. So that's parallel. I already made this one parallel, a finger distance apart. And we'll make this one up here. That's at least a finger distance apart. Okay, now I can cross that off my list. Number 6 says each quadrant must have a shape that is colored in to show value. And, oh, really, the rest of this is now done with coloring. So this is my finished composition. I'm not going to add much more in terms of lines to break up my space. So I am actually going to skip to step number 7. Step 7 says each quadrant must have a shape that demonstrates pattern within the design. So this is a pattern that you draw in. And it says each quadrant must have pattern somewhere, some way. So pattern is when you repeat a unit of design. So I could create pattern by using wavy lines. That's not a pattern yet. I'm going to repeat that line to make up my pattern. And I might repeat that somewhere else in my design. Maybe I'm going to repeat the same pattern here in this space. It says each quadrant has to have a pattern. So these 2 quadrants are done. I need patterns in these 2 quadrants. So I'm going to come up with another pattern here. Just going to work with stripes. I can add dots to the surface if I want. So there's a pattern. And my 4th pattern, I got to have a pattern somewhere in this space as well. Maybe I go back to this wavy one. So a pattern is something you draw in by hand. And really everything else has to do with coloring. So I'm going to show you that step separately, but you can also look at your design and decide if you want to add any more than what you already have. And in my teacher sample, I decided to put pattern in this space as well. So I balance it out. So I repeat this pattern here and this pattern here. So I'm going to draw in that design also. So I had the stripes with the dots on the surface. And if you notice, I'm staying within my lines when I create my pattern. And I'm not going to draw just across my whole page to build that pattern. Really, I'm going to do this with the color when I add that back on.